Hi, I'm Dawn Cavanaugh, APQS National Education Director and Customer Service Manager. You know, it's been well over 2 decades since I bought my first APQS longarm quilting machine. I can remember when I first made that investment how nervous I was about learning how to use this gigantic machine. Well, I quickly had my mind put at ease when I learned how simple it was to thread and how easy it was to manage the tension. See, APQS quilting machines use a simple disc tensioner where 2 discs push against each other with the thread trapped between them. That means that if I'm using thick threads or thin threads or even threads that aren't very consistent, such as decorative threads, I can adjust the pressure of those 2 discs so that the thread passes easily right through them. That's different than some other types of tensioners where the thread must go around at 360 degrees and the thread can actually rub against itself, making it more difficult to balance the tension. And everybody knows that as quilters, we all want beautiful tension. So I'd like to show you how easy it is to change your top tension on an APQS quilting machine. It helps to understand tension a little better if you actually know how the machine works. The goal is to have your top thread and your bobbin thread pull equally so that neither one is winning this tug of war. In fact, if one of them is winning, it tends to pull the thread to its side of the quilt. If the bobbin thread's winning the tug of war, the top thread gets pulled to the back. If the top thread's winning the tug of war, the bobbin thread gets pulled up to the surface. And in both of those cases, the thread could look like a very flat line instead of clean, defined stitches. In fact, the top thread's the one that's really doing all the work, and that's why you want an easy, simple way to adjust the top tension, because that's where all the power and the control is. If you watch the needle enter the bobbin area, the needle brings the top thread down into the bobbin area, while a part called the hook rotates around and grabs your top thread. The top thread is then carried all the way around the bobbin case until it's released, forming that locking stitch that forms a beautiful stitch. Well, as you can see, the bobbin thread isn't really doing much work at all. It's the top thread that's doing all the work. So it must have extra tension or the ability to adjust that tension so that with every stitch, once you move the machine to a new place, the thread is drawn up and the bobbin thread rests inside the layers of the quilt. So you want the top thread tension to be super easy and simple to adjust. That's allowing you to fine-tune everything and make your stitches look good no matter what direction you quilt. Adjusting tension on an APQS machine is super easy. The simple disc tensioner is easy to adjust. Rotate the dial clockwise to tighten the tension and counterclockwise to loosen. Another great way to remember that is lefty loosey, righty tighty. Since this is an industrial tensioner, you will turn the dial a quarter to a half turn to see a measurable difference on your thread. The great thing about a simple disc tensioner is that you can use a very wide variety of threads, from this thicker thread that you see here all the way down to a very thin, delicate 100 weight silk thread. The discs apply pressure on the thread but expand and contract as that thread thickness changes. It makes it really easy to get a great balanced stitch. I'd like to share a tip with you that I've been sharing with longarm students for many years now. It's an easy way to check your tension in all directions. I'll typically use the extra margin of fabric and batting off to the edge of my quilt. In fact, I try to leave a little extra batting and backing for this very purpose. I'll lay an extra scrap of fabric right on top of that extra batting, and then I'll check my tension by moving in some very specific directions. When I'm testing tension, I like to move to the left and right, then forward, backward, and then make clockwise and counterclockwise circles. Lastly, I try to make some diagonal lines in each direction. By moving in all of these directions, it duplicates the direction that the machine will quilt as I do different designs. Then it's easy to check the tension to make sure that everything appears balanced, no matter what design I'm trying to execute. If your stitches are loose or sloppy on the top, that's a sign that the top tension needs to be tightened. On the APQS simple disc tensioner, rotate the knob at least a quarter turn to the right to tighten. a half turn if you see quite a difference here in the stitches here. If you've lost your stitch definition on the top of the quilt, or you see the bobbin thread coming up as you change directions, that's a sign that your top tension may be too tight. Turn the tension knob a quarter to a half turn to the left to loosen and test again. Now you understand why an easy way to adjust your top tension is super important when trying to use lots of different threads on a long arm quilting machine. An easy, simple thread path combined with an easy to use simple disc tensioner makes that range of thread possibilities huge. Keep in mind that little ditty, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. If you see that your top thread's laying very flat on top, it means that it's pulling harder, it's winning that tug of war, so you need to loosen the top tension. But if the reverse is happening, if the bobbin thread is strong enough to pull the top thread down to the back, you got to give more power to the top thread and tighten that top tension. Turn it to the right, tighten it up. Well, as you can see, it's simple and easy to do. Feel free to join us in our conversation and learn more about thread, tension, and APQS quilting machines. Visit our website at apqs.com. We also have a great following on our APQS Facebook page and lots of YouTube videos to help you out with your long arm quilting questions and developing your skills. And follow us on Pinterest and also Instagram. We'd love to have you as part of our APQS family and join us in the conversation.